we do a lot of dog bites in our office. School's about to start back up. There's going to be more kids at bus stops, maybe walking to bus stops, maybe walking by houses where there could be a dog, an animal, where that animal does not know that child, right? Who maybe just moved into a neighborhood, is not going to walk to a bus stop to catch the bus. And then every once in a while, there's going to be a bite. And with more people on the road, more people living in the community, more kids getting on school buses, we anticipate more of that happening. And that's, unfortunately, that's a lot of our caseload is bites against children.
Right. And I think also with school being back in session, I don't know, most of the time when kids get bit by dogs, at least in our office, they're at somebody else's house playing or something like that. And it can happen in the summertime, but summertime's always so busy. You know, people are on vacation all the time. People come back to school, get in a routine. I'm going to go to so-and-so's house after school. And that's kind of when we see a lot of this happen before and after school with those friends and neighbors.
And, if an adult gets bit, they're able to articulate their injuries, articulate what happened to them. But when we're dealing with little kids, I mean, that's a different ballgame. And, I think we do a great job in our office when we do represent a child, but kind of touch on the child's perspective and what we've learned through our years of representing people.
It really depends on the age of the child, but especially very young children, like toddlers, they often get bit on the face, right? Because they're the same height as the dog. And there'll be that initial physical injury and it's painful. But then after that, they can't really articulate that they're afraid, but parents will notice, she's afraid of the family dog in the house. She cries. We've had cases where the little child points at the door of the neighbor whose dog and just is like, that's a bad house. And so in cases where people have had to move because the dog still lives next door, and it can be, and it really is a lot on the parents to know their children and watch their children and the way they're behaving, because they're not going to notice it. But then as the kids get older, sometimes they can articulate it, and it can become even worse for children, especially like middle school aged, high school aged. You're going to school with other children, and so they're asking you, what's wrong with your face? We're adults, we don't ask that to people. We have more respect. In middle school, they're just like, what happened to your face over the summer? And it can be very damaging, even more mentally so, depending on where you are. And they don't always articulate that it's the same as any kind of bullying. It's not so intentional, but now they've got this scar. It just makes them more susceptible.
Yeah. It's tough on the kids too.
Yeah.
The scars aren't going away in 6 weeks. A lot of times these scars will take, especially a facial scar, and especially if they have to have a reconstructive procedure to kind of lessen what the scar will look like in the future. Mm-hmm. Well, as they're going through this process, we're talking months, 6 months with a scar. For a school-age child, you're 100% correct. I mean, school's tough enough. And then we're going there. This is a real element of damage that we have to try to recover for the client. The good news is, if we can find insurance, it's strict liability in South Carolina.
Right. And if we can get those damages documented too. And it's hard when it's children to put them in a litigation scenario where they have to answer questions about it. Sometimes you don't get that from the children. They're just like, I'm okay in school, but their grades show that they're not okay in school. And their parents say they don't have any friends anymore. And the kids will know the dog who bit, it can get very tricky for children in school.
We try to lessen that, try to do as best investigation as we can. We'll prep the child, prep the parents, try to, if there's any neighbors who are not an uninterested party who can help us, any other family members, any other close family friends who can articulate how the child was before compared to now with a scar because of the dog bite. I think we do a great job trying to work that up for the family. So
a lot of times the scar revision procedures can be very, very painful, especially for children who have a lower pain tolerance. And they're already going through so much, they don't understand why they have to go through with this. And so we've had cases where they try to get the laser procedure done and it's too painful. And so that's where our job gets to be, document those procedures that they will need in the future and get them compensated for that. So then when they are adults, if they choose to go and sit through that, they're able to do it.
Yeah. And that's heartbreaking on the whole family. I mean, who wants to watch your kid get, let alone suffer a bite and then have to go through this painful treatment? And knowing that's what they need, it's tough for the family, the mother, the dad. It's brothers and sisters even.
Yeah, because you see them in so much pain, the bite heals, and because they can't start these scar revision procedures until you're healed up already. It finally heals, and then you just kind of have to go and reopen those wounds and relive it and still be in pain, and it's awful.
So when we take a dog bite, discuss what kind of economic impacts that we can try to recover as far as compensation. We touched on scar revision, obviously. If there's, naturally, if there was an ambulance bill, we would go after that.
Right. An ER bill, stitches, plastic surgeons sometimes will come in, depending on where it is on your face, remove those stitches, do those scar revision procedures. Then there's also the mental health counseling, right? If you're feeling that anxiety, if your child's feeling that anxiety, get them to a doctor who can document the mental anguish, because a lot of times in dog bites, your medical, you go and you get stitches, you have your stitches removed, excuse me, and your bills really aren't that much money, but your damages are still so great. Your life is completely changed because of this. You're scarred, you're afraid of dogs, and it can really just impact your self-confidence in a way that's really damaging. And so that is hard to put a value on. There's not you don't get a medical bill for your, no more confidence. So it's our job to really help document that and present that.
And we'll do that. We have constant meetings with the family, constant meetings with uninterested witnesses. Hopefully the child has had their issues diagnosed and documented by a plastic surgeon, so we have that evidence. When we take everything together along with our investigation, we're able to get a good recovery from the...
Yeah, and a lot of times it shows up in school records when school starts back up. The grades aren't as good as they were before. They're dropping out of their school activities. Those kinds of things all tend to show that this child's been going through something since the bite happened that maybe they weren't going through before.
So we kind of talked about the the medical bills, the medical expenses. What other elements of damages are we looking at with really any injury case, but especially in dog bite cases? I mean, we talk about scarring, disfigurement, that loss of enjoyment of life. Maybe they lose a season of baseball, lose a season of football, or maybe they're Girl Scouts and they're afraid to, a little girl got bit and she's afraid to go to our Girl Scout troop. I mean, those are little things that we can also recover. What else can we recover for?
Also, the future damages of all those things, especially when you're dealing with children, the future anxiety. If they are a toddler right now, they've got mental anguish that's showing up and bites on the face, right? You have mental anguish that's showing up right now and that you can see the kid's afraid of dogs, but you have to think about when they get to school, what is this going to be like? When you're going to get married and you have a scar on your face that you shouldn't have had, and all of those life changes. So the future projection for all of your damage becomes very important in dog bite cases.
Or they with like little boys, maybe they get bit on the arm. Let's get away from the face. They get bit on the arm, and the little boy might think it's cute. It's cool. I got a scar, but then deep down he's afraid of dogs.
Yep.
And again, they're not able to articulate that. Maybe because around their friends they think it's cool. It's a cool war wound to use that term. But really, they're struggling inside, and so it's important. We'll talk to clients that the parents realize, hey, if your child's struggling, let's get them to the counseling that they need. Let a doctor know. Talk to your child and let them know it's okay to articulate if you're having issues.
Yeah.
Don't be tough. Even with our adult clients, we never want them to be tough and not tell the doctor everything.
Right.
Because in the long run, it's gonna mess their case up.
Yeah, I mean, we've had cases where, especially like little boys, they'll be riding it, so sometimes they'll have scars all over their arm. But it's different than the scar where they were bit by a dog, because they remember that attack from a dog. A lot of times it's a betrayal of an animal that you trust.
And sometimes when we have these children's cases, of course, clients kind of want finality to their case. They always say, hey, Justin, Sarah, how long is this going to take? Well, with a child case, we might want to let it sit a little while.
Right.
The good news is they really don't have to file a lawsuit until a year after they're 18. Now, I'm not going to say we're going to take a 5-year-old, wait 13 years to file their claim, but we might want to wait a year or so and see how bad is this scar going to be.
Right. The physical scar and the emotional scar, because sometimes those things don't come out until later and you start seeing them. Even a year later, when you calm down from the whole situation, your scar's healed and it really sets in that this is how it's going to look forever.
Then there's other issues. Well, maybe we do want to push it as fast as possible. It just depends. Every case is different, and that's why you need a lawyer.
Right.
You need a lawyer when you or your child is bitten by a dog, and we see these a lot with kids. We're talking a lot about kids. Kids and women seem to be who attacks dogs, and so I always tell everybody, don't go up to a dog in these dog parks. Don't be petting dogs. They're not familiar with you. Again, with the kids going back to school, be careful walking in a neighborhood. Around a house with dogs that you're not aware of. And just try to stay as safe as you possibly can, especially out at the beach too. After 5, you don't have to have a leash. So if dogs are running wild, don't try to go up there and teach your kids to go up there and start playing with them, because that's a recipe to get. Those situations are what we sign all the time, and that's
and keep your own dogs on a leash, right? Because a lot of the situations we're involved with is people dogs get into a fight, and now you're trying to separate the dogs, and that's not a situation you want to be in. So keep your dog on a leash. And just look out for it. Don't run up to and approach, and teach your children how to approach dogs as safely as possible.
Right. Now, if this does happen to you, pictures, I've said this in several videos, I know you've said it too, pictures make these cases.
Right.
So if you have a bite and we start representing you, we're not going to just start working your case and never take any more pictures. I mean, we want to say, hey, you've had this scar for 6 months, right? You've had to have stitches in and out or that laser procedure. So we want pictures every week. So then when we go to settle your case, or if we have to try your case, we can show a jury, look how long Sarah had to have this scar, and now she still has this scar that's clearly visible from 8 feet away, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, and that could really add value to the case.
Yeah, dog bite case especially, what I tell all my clients, pictures are the best thing you can provide because we don't know how long this is going to take, and we might end up in a jury in 1 to 2 years from now, and I hope that you walk into the courtroom looking perfect and you're all healed, but we really have to show everybody what you went through and what that process was like, and pictures and videos are the best thing for that, is to just take them to where you are.
Right. And a lot of times these cases, they're either really, really good cases or there's no recovery.
Right.
And the reason because of that is we have to search for insurance coverage.
Right.
And if you're a renter at an apartment and you're a college kid with a dog, you can't get blood out of a turnip. There's nothing to get.
Right. Sometimes in those cases, though, we could reach back to the parents. So renters policies will be first. We'll look for those. Parents at home policies if they've got it. But it really depends on home ownership, where insurance is not always required for homeowners, right? Like in your car, you're required to have a certain amount of insurance all the time. Now, if you have a home, when you have a mortgage, you're required to have insurance. But if you don't have a mortgage, you're not required to have it. And so some people don't have insurance at all. And we run into that a lot, where the damages are great, but this person has nothing. They have no insurance. They have no assets. It's nothing we can get. So that's a big part of our investigation at the forefront of a dog bite case.
Sometimes we find it and there's an animal exclusion, and then we have to investigate. We have to pull veterinarian records, and because they'll say, hey, this dog was a pit bull, which was an excluded breed. Well, we know that dog wasn't a pit bull, but the insurance company, of course, is going to deny, delay, and devalue the case, arguing this exclusion. So what we have to do, and what we do in a lot of our cases, is we'll try to pull the veterinarian records, and we could go so far as getting the DNA of the dog,
Right,
showing that this is a mixed breed, which would trigger coverage. So then that changes the course of scope of the case from getting nothing to getting maybe a policy limits payout.
Right. And it can be even, more complicated than that, in where the insured person, so the dog owner, told their insurance company, I have these kinds of dogs and I want to be covered, and the insurance company writes it out anyway, and it becomes that fight where, well, they should have been covered because they told you that they have 8 pit bulls at their house, and they wanted that coverage, and you just didn't write it because it was too much of a liability. So all sorts of coverage issues come about in dog bite cases. So
the moral of that scenario is, don't try to do this on your own. And if you are and they're denying your claim, reach out to us, because there's more to it that we can, and oftentimes we can, turn the tides and get coverage.
Yeah, don't just let them tell you that it's excluded and that's it, because you want to see that exclusion and what it says and how it applies.
A lot of times in these premises cases, we can even get MedPay.
Right. And it's like $5,000, $10,000, sometimes even $20,000, depending on the policy, which can cover those past medical bills, right? A lot of the times, because they're not so great. You don't always have to have surgery or anything crazy with a dog bite. And like I said, a lot of it's future, but that MedPay really helps up front while we're doing all this investigation and fighting those exclusions and things like that.
Yeah, because think about it. If you take your child to the emergency room, you don't have health insurance, and then you're living paycheck to paycheck. That can turn your whole world upside down. So
right.
We try to really get that as quick as possible. If we identify a policy that's at play and there's MedPay coverage that would apply to this case, we're going to try to get that for our clients as fast as possible.
Absolutely.
So like you said, it could take us a year and a half to get to the ultimate settlement, and you need that, to bridge the gap.
Right.
When life gets ugly, justice is the